Hey guys, tonight we're slipping out of our memory foam mattresses and into something a bit more prehistoric. You open your eyes in a dark, damp cave. It smells like wet dog and scorched marrow. There's a faint trickle of water somewhere in the shadows, and the stone floor is cold against your hip. No alarm clock, no duvet, just the rough hide of what may once have been a mammoth stretched over your shivering frame. You sit up groggy and disoriented, and already miss central heating. Welcome to the Stone Age. And here's your first reality check. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling sociable, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now dim, the lights maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that hits you, aside from the smell of your neighbor's unwashed tunic, is how early it is. Time as you know it doesn't exist here. No clocks, no phones, not even a rooster. Just the faint pre-dawn light filtering in through a crack in the cave wall, and the low groan of someone with a dodgy back rising beside you. Spoiler, that someone might be you. Your mattress is a thin bed of dried moss rocks poking at your spine like nosy neighbors. It's a miracle you slept at all. You pull the mammoth hide cover aside and wince as your bare feet meet the stone. The air is damp and carries a smoky tang. Someone was on fire duty last night and clearly didn't get the memo about not falling asleep. There's a smoldering pile of charcoal by the wall, coughing little puffs of ash into the stale air. It's cold. Not grab a jumper cold. More like I'm considering spooning a stranger for warmth cold. The type of chill that creeps into your bones and makes your teeth hurt. You rub your arms and shuffle over to the fire pit, hoping for residual heat. There isn't much. One of the elders grunts something at you, possibly a greeting, possibly a threat. Hard to say. You grunt back. It feels oddly satisfying. You're not alone in this cave. There's a small group of about 12 people, all looking various shades of miserable. Most are still wrapped in furs, muttering, scratching, and avoiding the day like it owes them money. A couple of children are already up playing with pebbles in the dirt. One of them is suspiciously chewing on what looks like a beetle leg. There's no privacy, no room of your own. If you snore, everyone knows. If you talk in your sleep, they'll definitely bring it up later. And if you're hoping for 5 more minutes under the covers, forget it. The day's begun, and your role in the tribe requires your reluctant participation. The cave is adorned with faint ochre smudges, handprints, animals, maybe even constellations. Historians still argue whether these markings were art ritual or the prehistoric equivalent of doodling during a meeting. Whatever their purpose, they offer a whisper of the people who lived here before you. People who, against all odds, woke up in this damp hole and thought, right then, time to go poke something with a stick. You shuffle outside, blinking in the pale morning light. The air is crisp, and your breath comes out in little white clouds. It's not unpleasant if you ignore the ever-present threat of being mauled by something with more teeth than manners. The landscape stretches out in muted browns and grays, low hills, a distant forest, and beyond that, the glint of a slow-moving river. Peaceful if you forget the bit where everything is either poisonous or carnivorous. As you scan the surroundings, you hear a low growl in the distance. Maybe a cave lion, maybe your stomach. Hard to tell at this hour. One of your cave mates offers you a nod and hands you what might be a crude club or a very knobbly stick. Either way, you're armed now. Sort of. Let's hope you don't need it just yet. There's something vaguely empowering about standing barefoot in the dirt wind in your hair, dressed in animal hide like an extra from a museum diorama. You feel primal, free. Then your foot lands in something squishy, and the spell is broken. Possibly animal dung, possibly not. You try not to think about it too much. Still, there's something magical here. The way the mist clings to the grass, the distant call of birds you can't name, the sharp tang of flint in the morning air. It's beautiful in a wild, slightly terrifying way. And you, dear time traveler, are about to spend a full day living it. Don't worry, we'll take it one painful, bug-infested, cold-footed step at a time. You've barely rubbed the sleep from your eyes before your body reminds you of a basic truth nature calls. And in the Stone Age, nature answers. But not very politely. There are no toilets, not even a particularly private bush. Just open land, a cautious sense of shame, and the growing realization that your cave is both too public and too close for comfort. You shuffle awkwardly away from the main group, trying to remember where you saw a relatively secluded patch of grass, preferably not where the mammoth herd passed through yesterday. The ground is muddy. Your feet are already damp. And just as you think you've found the perfect spot, you step on a thistle. This is not the kind of roughage you had in mind. You glance around, crouch as discreetly as possible, and suddenly appreciate modern plumbing in a way you never thought you could. Now comes the truly thorny issue. What do you use? There's no soft roll of two-ply charm in waiting, no wet wipes, just stick stones, and maybe if you're lucky, a clump of moss that doesn't sting when applied. Historians still argue whether Stone Age people deliberately gathered materials for this purpose, or simply improvised in the moment. Either way, you're in for a bracing and humbling start to the day. You return to the cave, feeling slightly betrayed by nature and your own body. Hygiene, as it turns out, is a luxury. There's no tap to wash your hands, under no soap, and definitely no hand sanitizer. You wipe them off on your fur tunic with a quiet whimper. It's either that or start a fire just to boil water for rinsing. And fire, as you'll soon find out, is a drama all its own. Back in the cave, a few others have gone off to do their own morning business. A trail of footprints leads suspiciously close to the communal food stash, which you make a mental note to avoid for now. You wonder briefly, and with a grimace, whether the tribe has any concept of cleanliness zones. Judging by the state of that one bloke's hands, the answer may be no. A woman in the group chews something dark and sticky, her teeth stained with what looks like tar. It's not recreational, it's birch bark, resin possibly used as a chewing gum substitute, or even a rudimentary toothbrush. She offers you a lump. You accept it with gratitude and immediately regret it. It tastes like what you imagine a burnt tree feels like. Still, it does scrape at your teeth in a way that's mildly refreshing. Or is that just the taste of surrender? Toileting in the Stone Age isn't just about discomfort, it's also about risk. Venturing too far from the group can be dangerous. You're never quite alone in the wild. Predators are real, and unlike you, they don't hesitate. You catch sight of something large moving through the trees in the distance. It might be a deer. It might be something that eats deer. Either way, you pick up the pace. And while you're busy fretting about being eaten by a saber-tooth while squatting in the underbrush, you're also processing just how exposed your daily routines are. There's no door to close, no lock to turn, just wide open wilderness and your rapidly crumbling dignity. Even within the cave, privacy is non existent. You want to scratch an itch, someone's watching. You want to pick a scab. Congratulations, you've drawn a small crowd. You sneeze, and suddenly you're being offered an infusion of questionable herbs by an old man who smells like smoked lizard. You take it anyway. It's either medicine or flavorful pond water. And honestly, you're too tired to care. Some scholars theorize that early humans may have designated specific defecation areas, possibly to keep waste from contaminating living spaces. Others argue it was more of a go where you won't be seen situation with little ceremony and even less spatial planning. Either way, your modern sensibilities are not coping well. You miss sinks, you miss soap, you miss scented candles, and you're not even out of the morning yet. The worst part, this is a daily routine, not a novelty, not an occasional inconvenience. Every single morning, it's the same process. Wake up, shiver, squat somewhere vaguely acceptable, wipe with regret, return to the group with hands you try not to look at too closely. You think about the future, your real future, with its flushing toilets, temperature-controlled showers, and bathroom doors with actual hinges. It's enough to bring a tear to your eye. Or maybe that's just the stinging from whatever's in that resin. You resolve to stay close to water sources, to at least rinse your hands before you eat anything. Then you remember that the nearest stream is half a mile away, ice cold, and possibly upstream from where someone else did their morning business. You consider inventing soap. It seems simple enough, fats and ashes, right? But then you realize you don't have spare fat, or a pot, or any scientific understanding of basic chemistry. So you abandon that thought and wipe your hands on some cleanish-looking grass. As you prepare to face the next part of your day, you're already learning a fundamental truth about Stone Age survival. It's not just the big things, saber-toothed cats, hunting accidents, exposure to the elements. It's the little indignities, the minor miseries, the endless soul-eroding discomfort of simply existing. And you've only just started. By now your stomach is issuing mild threats, a low growling sort of rebellion that reminds you you've had nothing to eat since, well, ever, if we're being technical. In this strange new Stone Age life, there's no breakfast laid out, no cereal box on the counter, and absolutely no toast, no butter, no jam, not even a burnt bit you scrape off and pretend is fine. So what's for breakfast? You wander back toward the group, subtly eyeing what everyone else is doing. One man is gnawing on a root with the blank stare of someone who has accepted the futility of hope. Another cracks something against a rock. Turns out to be a snail. He slurps it out with the finesse of a man who's done this far too often. You swallow your modern revulsion and try not to judge. A woman offers you a handful of what might be edible, might not, small knobbly things that resemble dried peas. You pop one in your mouth and immediately regret it. It tastes like mud and bitterness. You chew, you suffer. You smile politely. There's no cooking fire yet. That takes time, effort, and someone volunteering to rub sticks together until their hands blister. In the meantime, you have raw options, roots, tubers, possibly a beetle or two. Historians believe early humans frequently relied on such foraged foods. Calories were calories after all. The question of palatability came second, or third, maybe 12th. You decide to help forage. It seems straightforward. Wander about, pick stuff. Try not to poison yourself, except you don't know what's poisonous. Everything looks suspicious. You stare at a patch of berries and wish Google had made it into prehistory. Are these edible? Are they hallucinogenic? Are they both? You point at the berries, raise an eyebrow. A nearby teen gives you a firm headshake. That you suspect is the universal "don't eat that" unless you want to see your ancestors' warning. Eventually, you find some edible roots with the help of a more experienced gatherer. They're stringy and tough, but with enough chewing, you get something vaguely nutritious out of them. It's not so much food as it is not dying, a culinary standard that regrettably defines this entire epoch. You notice someone has found a stash of nuts. They're smashing them open with rocks, delicately extracting the bits that don't taste like wood. You give it a go, and the results are underwhelming. One nut flies off and hits you in the shin. Another explodes into dust. Eventually, you get a small fragment of actual nut meat. Victory. You cherish it like gold. Occasionally, there are good days. A honeycomb found in a tree hollow. A bird's egg swiped from a distracted mother hen. But today isn't one of those days. Today is all bark and beetles. You briefly dream of scrambled eggs, toast with marmalade, a proper fry-up with black pudding and beans. The sort of breakfast that makes life worth living. Instead, you nibble on a fern stalk and try not to cry. There's also the chewing. Everything in the Stone Age requires chewing. Endless jaw-aching mastication. It's no wonder archaeologists find worn-down teeth in ancient skulls. They weren't brushing much, but also they were grinding raw plants between molars all day. Your own jaw is already complaining, and it's not even 9 a.m. And then there's the awkward bit sharing. Food is communal here. You find something, you pass it around. There's no snacking in secret, no hoarding biscuits in your rucksack. If someone catches you holding out, you might find yourself gently but firmly relocated to the watching for wolves squad. Still, there's a strange kind of rhythm to it all. You pick, you chew, you grunt in appreciation or dismay. You learn from others. You start recognizing plants. You begin to differentiate between tastes like despair and tastes like very mild despair with notes of beet. And the group notices. You get a nod from the old woman who first offered you the resin. It's the prehistoric equivalent of a thumbs up. You belong now, sort of, but you're still hungry. That gnawing feeling never quite goes away. You're not starving yet, but you're definitely not satisfied. You start to understand why early humans kept moving, why they were always on the lookout, why one good food source could determine everything from migration patterns to marriage prospects. Historians still debate the exact role of diet in early human brain development. Did meat fuel our evolution? Did foraged plants shape our cognitive adaptability? Or did sheer hunger force us into cleverness? Whatever the answer, you're beginning to realize just how much of life back then was spent simply trying to eat without dying. And even if you do eat, there's no guarantee your stomach will cooperate. Your system, spoiled by decades of preservatives and pasteurization, may not take kindly to a handful of raw tubers and snail slime. There's a very real possibility that come afternoon, you'll regret every nibble. But that's future you's problem. Present you is too busy gnawing bark and pretending it's crisps. One of the men grunts and points toward a distant field. There might be mushrooms, or at least something chewy that won't kill you outright. You nod and trudge off, root in hand, hunger still gnawing. Breakfast in the Stone Age. A medley of maybes, a buffet of bugs, and the growing realization that brunch is at least 30,000 years away. You're still chewing on the last fibrous scrap of breakfast, that root that tasted like disappointment, when someone tosses a lump of fur at you. It lands with a satisfying splat. It's your clothing for the day, a musky assemblage of stitched pelts that smells like it's been worn by a creature who recently lost a dominance battle. You hold it up and sigh. There's no changing room, no mirror, no sizes, just fur leather and the hope that none of it was recently used as a bedding mat by a family of voles. Dressing in the Stone Age is an exercise in low expectations. You squeeze yourself into the itchy ensemble, fumbling with the sinew cords that hold everything together. There are no buttons, zips, or elasticated waistbands, just bone toggles and sheer determination. As you loop a cord around your waist, a neighbor hands you something sharp, a needle of sorts carved from bone. You're supposed to tailor your outfit for a better fit. Historians still argue whether Stone Age people truly modified garments for personal flair or just patched holes as needed. Either way, your version of Stone Age fashion ends up looking like a particularly distressed potato sack with sleeves, and the fur itches. Dear heavens, it itches. You're not sure which part of the animal you're wearing, but it clearly had opinions, and they're being expressed on your skin in rash form. You scratch discreetly, then not so discreetly. Everyone else is doing it too. It's a bonding experience. You shuffle out of the cave, fully dressed in the loosest sense of the word. Your legs are wrapped in softened hide, your torso in a poncho-like flap that flutters in the wind like a particularly sad flag. Your feet, 2 sacks tied with gut string. You miss socks. You never thought you would, but here we are. You attempt to walk with dignity, but it's hard when your left shoe thing keeps twisting sideways, and your right one smells faintly of mildew. Still, you're better off than the bloke next to you, who appears to have mismatched footwear made from an old deer bladder and a patch of moss. He grins at you toothlessly. Fashion was not high on the priority list back then. Protection, yes. Camouflage, sure. Warmth, absolutely. But no one was trying to make a statement unless that statement was, please don't let my extremities freeze off. And even that was touch and go. Some people in your group have accessories, beads made of shell or bone, perhaps even teeth. It's oddly charming in a phone these in a predator's den sort of way. A young girl wears a necklace of bird talons. You're not sure if it's decorative or functional, and frankly, you're afraid to ask. You do manage to tie a loose knot at your shoulder that keeps your fur robe from slipping. It's a minor victory, and you celebrate it with a self-congratulatory grunt. One of the elders grunts back, either in approval or because he has indigestion. Communication is still a bit of a gray area. Weather-wise, things are not on your side. The wind has picked up. It's that kind of wind that slices through your hide layers like butter. You shiver. Somewhere in your mind, a voice whispers, Gore-Tex. You laugh a bit hysterically. The reality of ancient life becomes clearer with every gust. If it's hot, you sweat inside your furs like a roast parsnip. If it's cold, you freeze despite them. There's no just right temperature, only how long until frostbite sets in. And don't get too excited about animal hides. They're heavy, stiff, and absolutely not waterproof. You might as well drape yourself in soggy cardboard. One sudden downpour, and your cloak becomes a soaking, clinging 50-pound regret. Still, it beats nudity. Marginally. You look around and see others adjusting their garments, adding reeds mud, even feathers. Functional fashion, but with flair. Historians speculate that such customization may have signaled status role, or simply who could catch the fanciest bird that week. Your own cloak is aggressively beige. You consider upgrading with a pine cone, but it doesn't really say warrior. In the distance, someone is rubbing ochre on their cheeks. Maybe it's for ritual. Maybe it's prehistoric blush. Either way, they're pulling it off. You try a bit and immediately sneeze. Not your color. There's also the practical issue of hygiene. These clothes rarely, if ever, get washed. If they do, it's a rinse in freezing water and a slap on a rock. You imagine doing laundry without detergent tumble dryers or a passive-aggressive flatmate to nag you. Just rawhide and river water. Your entire wardrobe smells like a damp fox. It's worth noting that by this point in history, roughly the Upper Paleolithic period, early humans had developed some sophisticated sewing techniques. The invention of the eyed needle was a game changer. It allowed for fitted clothing layering and the eventual ability to fashion pocket-like pouches. Not quite enough to carry snacks, but progress nonetheless. You do your best to imitate those innovations. You fold and tuck, tie and knot, and finally arrive at a vaguely wearable state. You still itch. Your shoulders ache from the weight, but you're dressed. Sort of. Congratulations. And just as you settle into this new reality, the sky darkens slightly. Clouds loom. You feel the first drop of rain. Your cloak begins to absorb moisture like a neglected sponge. You sigh and whisper a quiet, heartfelt curse to whatever ancient deity forgot to invent umbrellas. Welcome to prehistoric couture, bold, brutal, and always slightly damp. By now you've come to terms with the general scratchiness of your clothing, the faint odor of something possibly decaying in your hood, and the sad truth that breakfast was mostly decorative. But your next concern strikes as you feel a rather familiar, unwelcome sensation in your mouth, a kind of mossy coating, like your tongue's been used to polish an old spoon. Time to clean your teeth, except there's no toothpaste, no brush, no minty foam. Just your own ingenuity and whatever nature provides. Which isn't much. One of the elders tosses you a twig. Not just any twig, mind. This one's been chewed at one end until the fibers fray out like a little brush. It's a primitive miswak. And while it might not look like much, it's as close to dental care as you're going to get. You pop the woody brush into your mouth and begin the gentle ritual of gnawing and scrubbing. Historians still debate the effectiveness of such tools. Some argue they were surprisingly useful, especially when paired with ash or powdered charcoal. Others suggest they merely redistributed the plaque into different, less visible corners. You, meanwhile, are more concerned about the taste. It's like brushing your teeth with a rosemary sprig marinated in regret. You spit discreetly. There's no running water, of course, so you swish with a mouthful of icy stream water scooped from a gourd. You don't think about where the water came from. You've stopped asking those kinds of questions. Dental hygiene in the Stone Age is a touchy subject. Skulls from the period show signs of serious wear, flattened molars from grinding plant fibers, and grains and deep cavities in those lucky enough to have access to starchy foods. You look around at your companions and note the general lack of full dental sets. Gaps, wobbles, and suspiciously pointy replacements seem to be the norm. One man has a pebble wedged where a canine used to be. Another woman's smile is an archaeological mystery. 3 teeth on the left, 2 on the right, none matching. You, with your dental fillings and gentle flossing habits, are something of an oral aristocrat. For now, feeling responsible, you try to do a bit more. You dip the twig in some fine grey ash from the hearth, gritty but mildly abrasive. It actually helps, though. Now your breath smells like a barbecue that's given up on itself. There's a communal tooth scraping session happening a few feet away. 2 people take turns inspecting each other's mouths, using small bone picks to prod at suspicious spots. It's a bit like dental checkups crossed with amateur archaeology. You politely decline to participate. Something about sharp tools and non-professionals makes you uneasy. Someone nearby has a pouch filled with aromatic herbs, mint, maybe sage, or just the only plant that doesn't taste like sadness. They chew it occasionally, possibly for breath freshening, possibly for ritual, or perhaps just because it's better than chewing leather. You try some. It's bitter, but vaguely cleansing, and yet the sense of dental doom is real. You remember reading once that a toothache in prehistory was not just painful, it was potentially lethal. An abscess without antibiotics could swell, rupture, and spread infection. You resolve here and now to do absolutely anything to keep your molars intact. You ask, well, mime the concept of flossing. A young boy hands you a string of sinew. It's tough and slightly sticky. You make a brave attempt, sliding it between 2 particularly tight teeth. There's a snap, a wince, and a suspicious metallic taste. You spit again. Possibly a victory, possibly a warning. One of the elders shows you his proudest invention, a fishbone with one end sharpened. A personal toothpick. He gestures to his single front tooth with pride. You nod appreciatively, then gently put the bone down. Despite everything, there's a bizarre satisfaction in the simplicity of it all. No rinsing, no mirrors, no 30-minute countdown before eating. Just scrub, spit, and hope. You chew your twig thoughtfully, staring at the misty horizon. Your gums tingle slightly. Could be good. Could be impending infection. It's always a gamble. There's even a kind of oral tradition, no pun intended, surrounding mouth care. Some tribes believed spirits lived in the teeth, and toothache was a form of punishment. Others considered losing teeth a rite of passage. If you're lucky, maybe you'll get to skip that part. A sudden gust of wind blows ash into your mouth. You cough retch and drop your twig. Nature's way of telling you that's enough dental care for today. You glance at the others. They're not brushing, not really. Just going about their day. Mouths wide open, teeth darkened with years of wear and weather. And somehow they keep going. That's the lesson, perhaps. You adapt, you endure. You chew what you must and carry on, still. As you spit one final time into the dirt and wipe your mouth with a sleeve that was never clean, you vow this: if you ever make it back to your own time, you will cherish your toothpaste. You will sing odes to mouthwash, and you will floss like your life depends on it, because in the Stone Age, it absolutely does. Your teeth are now roughly cleaner, or at least less foresty, when you hear the familiar rise and fall of guttural voices. The tribe is stirring properly, now gathering near the cave's mouth for what you might call the daily briefing if anyone here had a clipboard. There's pointing, grunting, a bit of laughing. You edge closer, hoping to blend in, trying not to look too time displaced. Stone Age socializing is nothing like a polite coffee morning. There's no small talk, no awkward pauses about the weather, because everyone's already soaking wet and entirely aware of it. What you do have is a communal noise, part language, part vibe. It's a symphony of grunts, howls, facial expressions, and some honestly questionable interpretive dance. One of the men gestures toward the sky, then to the forest. Another woman huffs and mimics pulling something. It seems a plan is being formed. You nod solemnly, though you have absolutely no idea what's being agreed to. You suspect a hunting expedition, or maybe a trip to collect firewood. Possibly both. Possibly neither. You try your hand at communication. You point to your mouth, then the woods. A few of them nod. One smirks. One gives you a half-eaten mushroom. You're not sure whether that's approval or punishment. Despite the lack of words, there's a rhythm to this social dance. Everyone seems to understand their place. The elders with their heavy cloaks and slight hunches do less but watch everything. The middle-aged adults carry most of the workload, while the teens bounce around, laughing, bickering, and occasionally throwing rocks at one another, either playfully or as part of a centuries-old feud. As for you, you're still on the social periphery, not quite in, not quite out. A curiosity. You catch one of the elders watching you with narrowed eyes as if trying to determine whether you're useful a threat or just peculiar enough to ignore. Tribe life isn't just about survival. It's also about politics. The soft kind with glares and favors, and the occasional passive-aggressive fish toss. One woman seems to wield considerable influence, though no one said a word. She simply points, and people obey. You suspect she may have invented the first ever mum voice. There's no leader in the modern sense, but power dynamics are unmistakable. You sense hierarchies based on strength, skill, maybe even charm. That guy with the best spear and symmetrical cheekbones, he gets the biggest chunk of meat later. That woman who can mimic animal calls so well, it gives you goosebumps. She's the one they send ahead on hunting trips. And then there's the gossip. Oh yes, even here. You hear hushed tones, quick glances. Someone's sleeping in someone else's spot. Someone dropped the dried meat into the fire last night. Someone still smells of fermented root and regret. You're not above it. You listen intently, even if you understand nothing. The tone says it all. Historians still argue about the sophistication of language in the Upper Paleolithic period. Was it full verbal language or something more symbolic and gestural? Recent evidence suggests complex communication systems existed, perhaps rich in metaphor and nuance. You'd agree, especially after watching two men spend 5 minutes using only eyebrow movements to argue about a stick. Your place in the tribe remains uncertain. You haven't contributed much. You haven't offended anyone either, unless that nice rock you gave away was actually a sacred object. It's hard to tell. Someone laughed. Someone else sniffed loudly. You've learned to interpret both as encouragement. A young boy offers you a lump of clay. You take it nodding with the solemnity of a man who once worked in IT and now molds mud with tribal children. The boy shapes his into something animal-like. Yours looks like a melting sock. He pats your shoulder, and you feel mildly accepted. As you squat near the fire sharing warmth with strangers you now sort of belong to, you begin to feel something strange. A sense of inclusion, of belonging. You grunt when they grunt. You frown when they frown. You nod along as someone explains something with a series of wildly animated gestures involving a pretend spear and what may be an impression of a falling boulder. You're still the outsider, but you're not invisible. Then, just as you're beginning to enjoy the primitive camaraderie, someone mimes a hunting motion and points directly at you. You blink. A few others nod. The message is clear, you're coming with them. Your heart sinks. You were hoping to spend the afternoon near the fire, maybe helping sort dry reeds or pretend to be busy. Instead, it looks like you're about to join the hunters. With your twig-clean teeth, your itchy tunic, and the social grace of a man who just mimed eggplant when trying to say hello. Still you rise, you nod, you even grunt low and confident. You're in this now. The tribe has spoken without words, naturally. Tribe life is about fitting in, finding your role, and occasionally being roped into something you're completely unprepared for. You step forward, pretending you're brave, that you've done this before, that you didn't nearly cry during breakfast. You're holding a spear. Well, technically, it's a long knobbly stick with a flint point wedged onto the end with resin and wrapped tightly in sinew. It's wobbly, possibly cursed. You grip it with both hands like a nervous broom enthusiast and try to radiate experienced hunter vibes. No one's buying it. The tribe's hunting party is made up of 6 others, a mix of wiry young men, a muscular woman with eyes like she's already survived 3 saber-tooth attacks, and one older fellow who walks with a limp but carries a rock with such determined familiarity it might as well be his childhood teddy. There's no pep talk, no good luck hug. They simply head into the woods. You follow awkwardly. Every twig you step on feels like an announcement. High easy meal here. You try to tread lightly, but the Stone Age forest is full of booby traps, disguised as roots, mud holes, and low-hanging branches with a vendetta. The air is thick with damp earth and the occasional buzz of something that might sting. You're not sure if it's your nerves or the looming sense of being out of your depth, but your palms are sweaty and your spear is shaking. One of the younger hunters notices. He raises an eyebrow. You try to steady it. He gives you a look that says, "Don't worry, we'll let the bear eat you first." You move in silence. Hunting requires patience, stealth, and an unsettling disregard for your own comfort. Your nose is running. You can't wipe it. The spear's too long to hold with one hand comfortably. There's a leaf in your sandal. You endure. Historians agree that group hunts were strategic, often involving tracking, trapping, and coordinated drives toward kill zones. Today, your strategy appears to be walk around until something panics and you follow it. Simple, effective, occasionally lethal. After an hour of trudging, someone spots tracks, hoof marks pressed deep into the soil heading northeast. Possibly red deer. The group fans out slightly. You stay close to the old man. He smells of flint and damp bark, but at least he walks slow. Then comes the bog. It looks innocent enough, just a stretch of flat greenish moss with glimmering puddles. The hunter ahead crosses quickly. You follow and immediately sink. The mud grabs your foot with enthusiastic suction. You flail, drop your spear, and manage a half-whispered, very modern, "Nope, nope, nope, nope," as you try to stay upright. The group watches unimpressed. One of them mutters what might be the ancient word for clown. Eventually, the old man reaches down and hauls you up by the armpits. You emerge with one shoe missing and dignity at an all-time low. But you're upright and only partially soggy. You find the spear, sort of. It now has a slight bend and an alarming wobble. You grip it like a lifeline anyway. Then movement. There ahead, a flash of brown, a flick of an ear, and the silent freeze of the entire group. You follow their eyes. A deer. Beautiful, slender, and utterly unaware that 7 underfed humans are now staring at it like it's a roast dinner in slow motion. The lead hunter signals with 2 fingers. Everyone crouches. You crouch. Something in your knees makes a noise like cracking twigs. No one reacts. You inch forward, heart hammering every breath loud in your ears. You're close enough now to smell the damp fur of the person in front of you. Or perhaps that's you. Then comes the moment, the signal. A sharp whistle, and the group lunges. Screams, shouts, the pounding of feet. You run, thrusting your spear in the general direction of threat. The deer bolts, startled but unharmed, and disappears into the trees with a grace that mocks you personally. One hunter throws his spear and misses by a wide margin. It hits a tree, ricochets, and very nearly clips your leg. You all stop panting. The deer is gone. The forest falls silent again, broken only by the sound of heavy breathing, and one person coughing quietly with disappointment. The lead hunter mutters something. Possibly we'll circle around. Possibly who brought the tourist. You spend the next hour pretending to know what you're doing. You bend down to inspect the ground. You squint into the trees. At one point, you accidentally track a squirrel for 15 minutes before realizing your mistake. It did seem rather nimble for a boar. Eventually, the group does bring something down. A rabbit, small, quick, and deeply unfortunate. It's not the most glorious victory, but they cheer softly, grateful for anything. You don't get any of the credit. You were at that exact moment, tangled in a bramble bush, trying to retrieve your spear from a tree stump. Still, you nod sagely when they show you the kill. Good work, you say, forgetting they can't understand a word. You return to camp as the sun begins to dip sore in places you didn't know could be sore, hungry, scratched, and trailing a faint aroma of bog water. Your first hunt, less majestic conquest, more extended hike with weapon-based embarrassment. Historians still argue about the success rate of prehistoric hunts. Some estimate it was depressingly low, with more energy expended than gained. Others believe early humans were strategic geniuses, slowly honing skills over thousands of years. You, however, suspect that most days were like today, equal parts perseverance, blind luck, and not falling into a pit. As you collapse by the fire, your knees throb, your arm tingles, and your stomach reminds you it hasn't had anything but sadness and bark all day. But you survived, and for now, that's enough. You wake from what was supposed to be a short sit-down, only to realize you've been face down in a patch of dry moss for the better part of half an hour. Your cheek has a delicate imprint of bark. There's a stick in your ear. It's not dignified, but it's rest. Sort of. The hunting party has dispersed into camp again. Some attending to the meager spoils, namely one extremely unimpressed-looking rabbit, and others gearing up for a less dramatic but more reliable source of sustenance foraging. You're invited, or more accurately nudged, into joining a small group heading out with baskets made of woven reeds slung over their shoulders like rustic handbags. Foraging, unlike hunting, doesn't require much in the way of speed or strength. Just a keen eye, a vague idea of what's edible, and ideally, the ability to distinguish between dinner and death. As you trail behind the group, you're given a quick crash course in pointing and nodding. A woman kneels and gestures to a plant with serrated leaves. She mimes chewing, then nods. You mimic her. She does it again, faster. You attempt to repeat the gesture. She smiles. Congratulations, you've just passed. Foraging 101. The woods are quieter now, save for birds buzzing insects, and the occasional ominous creak of something large moving somewhere out of sight. Still, you focus on the task at hand, gathering food that doesn't actively try to escape or poison you. It's a low bar, but you respect it. You begin with berries. Bright red ones catch your eye and your hand hovers. A nearby forager gives you a very subtle headshake. You withdraw. Purple ones next. Another shake. Finally, small blue ones, growing low to the ground, earn you a nod. You pop one in your mouth. It's sour. Your tongue recoils. But hey, edible. Historians believe early humans had a fairly detailed working knowledge of their local plants, often passed down through demonstration rather than formal instruction. You're experiencing that firsthand, now an informal apprenticeship in what amounts to the prehistoric version of "Don't put that in your mouth, Kevin." You move on to roots. These require some digging. You squat by a plant that looks vaguely promising and begin clawing at the soil. It's tough work, and you're not wearing gloves. There's mud under your nails, and something squelches under your fingers. Possibly a worm, possibly your last shred of enthusiasm. Eventually, you extract something carrot-shaped. It's not a carrot. It's beige bulbous and smells faintly like old socks. Your foraging mentor gives you a firm nod. Into the basket it goes. You glance at her own haul and feel a mix of shame and admiration. She's got a collection of mushrooms, greens, and even a few snails in a pouch at her waist. You have 2 tubers and some leaves that may or may not be useful as napkins. And then you get bold. You wander a bit further from the group, curious now, feeling almost confident. You spot a patch of strange but inviting berries. Small, yellowish, hanging like little lanterns. You pluck one and sniff it. Not bad. You look over your shoulder. No one's watching. You pop it in your mouth. At first it's fine. Then your tongue feels tingly. Then your throat. Then the trees start to shimmer a little. You sit down, possibly slowly, possibly all at once. Somewhere nearby, the woman who taught you the good plants protocol appears, squints at the bush, then at you. She sighs, pulls out a flask made of hollowed bone, makes you drink it. It tastes like licorice and pond. You immediately burp loudly and hiccup. The shimmer fades. Congratulations, you've just experienced what historians suspect was not uncommon in early diets: mild poisoning. Most of the time, not fatal, but always memorable. The group regathers, and you sheepishly rejoin them, keeping to the safer greens this time. You help carry a basket quietly, hoping no one brings up your incident. A child passes you a beetle. You eat it without blinking. Redemption is earned one crunchy leg at a time. By the time you return to camp, the sun is dipping low again. Your haul is modest, but you contributed. You weren't eaten, and you only hallucinated a little. All in all, a productive outing. Historians still argue whether foraging was viewed as lesser work compared to hunting or equally vital. Given the consistent returns and lower risk of being mauled, you're leaning toward criminally underrated. As evening begins to settle, you realize that the day's meals, such as they are, will come from both efforts. The rabbit roasted over embers, the greens boiled into a sort of swampy stew. The snails, well, you're still pretending not to notice them, but someone somewhere is licking their lips, and as you sit with the others, chewing your way through leaves that resemble boiled shoelaces, you reflect that you're not doing too badly. You're dirty, you're itchy, but you're alive, which, frankly, is ahead of schedule. The sun hangs low in the sky, now casting a warm golden glow over the camp, like nature's way of apologizing for all the spiders. Your limbs are aching, your belly still vaguely empty, and your hands carry the scent of damp roots and questionable mushrooms. But you've earned yourself a rest. Sort of. You lie back on a patch of grass, using your rolled-up cloak as a pillow, and close your eyes for what you hope is 5 minutes of blissful unconsciousness. But the moment your breathing slows, something rustles nearby. You freeze. It might be the wind, might be a small animal, might be something significantly larger with claws. You slowly open one eye, then the other, just trees, then the rustling again. Closer this time. Definitely not the wind. You sit up, every muscle stiff from squatting, crouching, and panicking all day. A figure passes nearby. It's one of the young hunters circling the camp's edge. He's not worried, which should comfort you. But he also has a spear in his hand and a very serious look on his face. Welcome to the concept of the danger nap. In the Stone Age, sleep is not a guaranteed right. It's more of a gamble. With no locked doors, no walls, and no mosquito nets, every nap carries a risk. Sure, you might drift off for a cheeky afternoon snooze. Or you might wake up with a badger on your chest. The elders call softly. They're organizing the night watch, a rotating system of people who stay up in pairs to keep an eye out for threats. Predators, rival humans, even the weather if it turns properly nasty. You're not on duty yet, but you won't be able to sleep, not with all that rustling. And especially not with the tale someone just told around the fire about the man who fell asleep alone and woke up missing a toe. Possibly chewed off by a hyena, possibly just a tragic frostbite accident. Historians still argue about whether early humans exaggerated these stories to keep others alert. You, meanwhile, are officially wide awake. You try to relax again, lying on your side now. There's something comforting about the crackle of the fire, the murmur of voices, the distant hoot of an owl. For a brief, wonderful moment, you're almost cozy. Then someone walks past their bare feet, squelching in mud. You feel a tickle on your arm. Just a bug, probably. Probably. You sit up again. Your mind starts to wander. You imagine the saber-toothed cat you read about. Once its enormous canines, its stealthy tread, the way it probably saw human beings as walking snacks with anxiety issues. You remind yourself that the saber-tooth is statistically unlikely to be behind that bush. Still, you shuffle closer to the fire. There are other predators too. Wolves lurking in the dark. Or worse, humans from other tribes. It wasn't always friendly out here. Archaeological evidence shows signs of conflict skulls with wound settlements, abandoned, hastily camps burned, territory disputes, resource squabbles. or just plain grumpiness over who stole whose squirrel stew. You scoot a bit closer to the group, suddenly very aware of your unarmed status. Your spear is somewhere near the cave. You left it leaning on a rock like an absolute amateur. If something does attack, you'll be fending it off with your boot or your terrifying breath. One of the older women glances at you, then pats the spot beside her. You shuffle over. She hands you a strip of dried meat, tough as old boots, but salty and oddly reassuring. She points up at the stars. And here's the thing. For all the tension, for all the fear, the night sky is utterly breathtaking. Unpolluted, unfiltered, and impossibly vast. The Milky Way spills across the blackness like powdered sugar. Stars crowd every inch of space. There's no Netflix here, no TikTok. But this view, this is your evening entertainment. And it's stunning. You lie back again this time, with one eye open, scanning the tree line, still rustling, but no snarling, no movement, just shadows and the whisper of wind through the leaves. A low hum rises from the group singing, or maybe chanting, wordless but rhythmic. It's hypnotic, calming. Someone taps a rhythm on a hollow log. It's the Stone Age version of a lullaby, and it works surprisingly well. You close your eyes. Dozy. Wake again. More rustling. This time it's a pig, not a wild boar, thankfully. Just one of the tribe's semi-domesticated snacks in waiting, trotting through the grass. It snorts and gives you a look that clearly says, "Get over yourself." You do. Eventually, your name, well, your new name, which seems to be Yah, gets whispered. It's your turn for night watch. You rise still half asleep and accept the spear offered by your predecessor. He nods, once yawns, and disappears into the cave. Now it's your job to keep the tribe safe while they sleep. You sit near the fire. You stare into the trees. You listen. There's beauty in the stillness. You feel the weight of the stars above you, the quiet trust of those behind you, and the reassuring roughness of the spear in your hand. Welcome to your new job, Prehistoric Security Guard. And you're not even being paid overtime. The fire crackles quietly beside you, its warmth licking gently at your side as you squint into the dark. Holding a spear and pretending you're not terrified is the Stone Age equivalent of reading the terms and conditions. You go through the motions, but you're not entirely sure what any of it means. This officially is dinner time. But it's not quite what you'd hoped. There's no feast. No heaping bowls of stew or warm bread rolls passed around. Instead, your meal consists of a small blackened rabbit leg, 2 toasted snails that are somehow both crunchy and slimy, and a handful of steamed greens that smell faintly like wet laundry. You chew slowly. The rabbit is chewy and smoky, but not awful. It's been roasted directly over the fire on a stick, probably turned with the kind of vigilance normally reserved for nuclear launch keys. Every scrap of meat has been claimed, and you're acutely aware of the fact that even the bones won't go to waste. The snails. Let's just say you try one. Once. The flavor is somewhere between forest floor and pond scum. You nod appreciatively, hoping no one offers a second. As for the greens, they're a boiled mess of something leafy and stringy. Possibly nettles. Possibly spinach's bitter, angry cousin. Either way, you're grateful for the warm liquid. It's the closest thing to soup, and your stomach thanks you with a groan of tentative approval. Preparing food in the Stone Age isn't exactly an act of culinary joy. It's survival science, with limited ingredients and unlimited disappointment. Cooking methods vary: roasting, boiling, with hot stones burying food in ashes, and praying very hard that no one dies from undercooked mammoth. Tonight's meal was a group effort. The greens were gathered by the foragers you included, though your contribution was mostly a clump of inedible moss, and the meat came courtesy of the hunting party. One man is still boasting, pantomiming his throw, while the others feign sleep to escape the fifth retelling. You glance at the fire, where a flat stone rests near the coals. Someone is using it to cook what looks like beetle paste, flattened into a kind of sad pancake. You're not offered any. You're both relieved and slightly offended. There's also a modest pile of acorns being roasted in a corner. They're bitter unless properly leached, but someone here knows the trick, soaking them in water until the tannins fade. The result is tolerable. You eat two, crunching thoughtfully and pretending you're full. No one speaks much during dinner, not out of rudeness, just habit. Eating is a quiet communal affair. There's a rhythm to it. Chew, stare into the flames, pass something over. Grunt your thanks. Someone lets out a small burp. It's met with mild applause. You join in, confused but supportive. Historians still argue about the exact makeup of Stone Age diets. Some suggest a surprisingly balanced intake of proteins, fats, and seasonal carbs, thanks to a mix of meat, fish, fruit, and wild grains. Others point to evidence of chronic malnutrition, dental wear, and limited seasonal variety. You, however, are too busy gnawing on a half-charred root to weigh in. There's no cutlery, no plates, just hands and bark bowls. You're developing a strange fondness for your little, hollowed-out wooden scoop. You've named it Steve. Steve gets most of the stew. There's also no dessert, no pudding, not even a single square of chocolate. Just a silence that slowly thickens as night deepens, and the last logs of the fire are nudged into life by a sleepy toe. The flames flicker, casting shadows on the cave wall. You catch sight of the ochre paintings again, those ghostly swirling shapes. Hands, deer, a bear possibly. Someone beside you murmurs and gestures toward them. It might be a story. It might be a warning. You smile and nod either way. One of the older men stands up and clears his throat. Everyone turns. You expect a speech, but instead, he produces a flute of sorts, a reed instrument, small and shrill. He plays. A simple tune, repetitive, wavering. It's not quite music, but it's something more than noise. A lullaby for the weary. Someone begins tapping along with a stick. Another hums low. You sit still, letting it all wash over you. The warmth of the fire, the ache in your legs, the taste of ash and greens still on your tongue. You're part of something now. Not quite a tribe member, not yet. But no longer a stranger. Then the fire spits dramatically, sending a spark up into the air. It startles you and scorches the hem of your cloak. You pat it out quickly, trying to pretend that never happened. Only one person notices a young girl. She giggles, then offers you a piece of dry reed to replace the scorched bit. Stone Age fashion advice. It seems comes with a side of sass. Finally, dinner winds down. Someone adds a log to the fire. Others begin to lie down, curling into pelts, breathing soft and slow. You remain by the fire for a moment longer, watching as the flames shrink, sigh, and flicker into slumber. No dessert, no tea. But your belly's not empty, your skin's warm. And for a few minutes at least, you forget about how cold the night is going to be. You're nursing the last embers of the fire when a pair of eyes catch yours across the cave. They belong to a young woman seated cross-legged, weaving something from strands of grass and sinew. She glances up, then down again, then up once more. It's the prehistoric version of flirting, and it's subtle enough to go right over your very modern head. But then, she gets up, walks over, and sits beside you. You panic. Do you say something grunt? Offer her the remains of your rabbit bone? You decide on a smile. She doesn't run away. A promising start. Romance in the Stone Age is less wine and poetry, more shared warmth and mutual lice inspections. You've seen it already. Quiet, companionable touches, the passing of food, the lending of tools. A man carved a heart into a tree earlier, or possibly a buttock. It's hard to say, but his intended seemed pleased either way. The woman beside you, let's call her Fern, offers you a stone. Smooth, pale, oddly symmetrical. You turn it in your palm, confused. She points at it. Then places her hand over her heart. Right, a gift. You try to return the gesture. You root around and find a particularly round pebble. It's warm from your pouch, which is possibly romantic. You offer it to her. She takes it, smiles, and for a moment, you feel a genuine connection, even though your last date involved a tapas bar and a DJ named Craig. Historians suggest that courtship during the Upper Paleolithic period often revolved around small, meaningful gestures, gifts of flint beads, or even favors during hunts. Emotional connection. Probably, but also practicality. A good partner increased your chances of survival. And ideally, didn't snore like a drowning mammoth. Fern reaches into a pouch and shows you her collection of teeth. Not hers, animal teeth, strung together as a necklace. You admire it respectfully and don't ask questions. She leans in slightly, and you get a whiff of her scent, smoke, sweat, and something vaguely floral. Possibly from her bedding, possibly from the herbs she stores in her braids. You sit in silence for a while. There's no pressure to fill the air with words, just presence, a comfort in proximity. You feel briefly human in a way that transcends the timeline you woke up in. Then someone sneezes loudly from across the cave, and the moment breaks. Still, you're not done yet. Fern gestures toward your hair. You nod, unsure. She begins plaiting it with nimble fingers, adding a strip of hide and something that might be a feather. It's soothing, rhythmic, possibly symbolic. Or maybe she just thinks your fringe is a disaster. In the background, you spot another couple curled up together. It's less romantic. Cuddle, more pragmatic thermal insulation. But the intimacy is unmistakable. These people, for all their primitive struggles, love and bond and grieve like anyone else. Maybe even more deeply, knowing how fragile their lives really are. You wonder how relationships started here. Was there a first glance over a campfire? A shared mushroom? Non-poisonous, ideally, a double kill on a hunt. Two birds with one spear seems like the height of courtship. Fern finishes. With your hair nods in satisfaction and gives your shoulder a brief squeeze. It's not marriage. It's not even dating, not in the way you know it. But it's something warm, something human. Of course not. Every love story here is idyllic. You've already heard two arguments today. One about stolen berries, the other about someone sleeping in the wrong fur pile. Jealousy, frustration, petty squabbles, they're timeless. Historians still debate how formal relationships were in the Stone Age. Some argue for lifelong pair bonds, others suspect it was more fluid based on need attraction and shared chores. You suspect it was a bit of both, some couples sticking it out through lice and lean seasons, others drifting apart when someone found a shinier rock. You think back to your modern life, swiping on apps, awkward texting, overthinking emojis, and here a glance, a stone, a plaited lock of hair. Simpler in a way, but also more honest. As Fern gets up to return to her spot, she presses the stone into your palm one more time. You grip it tightly, the flint still warm from her hand. The fire crackles again. The night deepens, and your heart still beating in the chest of a confused, displaced 21st century human finds something familiar in this ancient place connection. You sit quietly staring at the rock and realize that even here, even now, you're not alone. The stars have now multiplied in number, crowding the inky sky like shy performers waiting for their curtain call. The moon is rising too, one distant and pale as an old bone, and the temperature dropping like an overripe plum from a tree. It's the kind of cold that reaches through your fur layers with fingers made of icicles and regret. You huddle by the fire, dragging your cloak tighter around your shoulders. The warmth, once gentle and pleasant, now feels like the single remaining candle at the end of a long dark tunnel. You edge closer. One of the elders grunts and shifts to make space, the universal sign of, all right, but don't hog it, hog. There is no central heating, no thermostat, no spare duvet in the airing cupboard. Just fire and the constant battle to keep it alive. You grab a few sticks and feed them carefully into the coals, learning the hard way that wet wood hisses and spits with malicious enthusiasm. A rogue ember lands on your shin. You yelp. The elder beside you chuckles, handing you a rock to beat it out with. Warmth here is earned. You have to gather it, feed it, protect it. Fires are precious. You understand now why early humans guarded embers like treasure. Without one, your night could be fatal. Hypothermia is not just a textbook term here. It's a lurking presence, a whisper that creeps up your spine as soon as the flames flicker low. People begin layering up. More hides, cloak shawls, made from reeds, even the occasional woolen-looking garment, likely taken from some particularly shaggy beast. You're handed what appears to be a blanket. It's damp. It smells like badger. Possibly as badger. But you accept it with quiet gratitude, wrapping it around yourself like a soggy tortilla. Sleeping arrangements are strategic. The cave doesn't have rooms, but there are warm zones areas closest to the fire, typically occupied by elders or small children. You, being still somewhat expendable, are directed towards the outer ring. Not the coldest, but not the coziest either. People curl up in pairs or small groups, sharing body heat under overlapping furs. You remember the couple from earlier, still curled together, now fast asleep, breath fogging gently in the frigid air. You attempt something similar, inching your way toward a spot where several cloaks have formed a communal pile. And it's then, just as you lie down and begin to adjust to the bone-chilling hardness of the floor, that someone throws a damp reed mat over your legs, for insulation presumably, or possibly to keep you humble. Historians still puzzle over exactly how early humans insulated their shelters. Some evidence points to moss-filled gaps, hide curtains across cave mouths, and heated stones placed under bedding. Others believe they simply endured layering up and sleeping close until morning returned like a groggy old friend. You test a few positions, curled up, knees to chest, flat on your back arms crossed like a very cold vampire. None are ideal. The floor is unforgiving, and the furs shift just enough to let the chill in. Still, you pull your badger blanket higher and focus on the one warm spot near your neck, hoping it expands like good karma. Then someone sneezes loudly, and someone else shushes them. An argument nearly breaks out. You keep your eyes closed. Maybe if you lie still enough, no one will ask you to take a turn outside with the firewood. Despite the cold, you start to drift. The fire pops softly. Someone nearby hums a low tune, maybe a lullaby, maybe just a tune passed down so many times it no longer needs words. You're just on the edge of sleep when a child crawls over and nestles beside you. She wraps a bit of fur around your arm and mutters something that might mean warm or you'll do. You hold very still, unsure if this is an honor or a practical accident, but it helps. The extra heat, the shared space. For the first time all day, you begin to relax, not entirely, but enough. Enough to feel that peculiar warmth of survival, the hum beneath your skin that says, you made it this far. Still, your feet are ice blocks. You wiggle them inside your makeshift shoes and consider the possibility of crafting Stone Age slippers, maybe out of moss, or the pig you saw earlier if you can catch it. Cold, hunger, fatigue. They're constant companions here. But so is resilience. You glance around at the huddled figures, breathing slow and deep, at the flickering fire, and the walls streaked with ochre ghosts. They've done this before. You're learning, and somewhere in the dark, just outside the firelight, something howls. You don't move. You don't speak. You just adjust your blanket inch a little closer to the warm bodies around you and hope the fire holds until morning. You're not sure what time it is. There's no clock, no sunbeam creeping across the ceiling, no polite smartphone nudge saying, "Good morning." Just the gradual awareness that you are once again awake and that your left leg has lost all feeling under a damp bundle of reeds that now seems to weigh roughly as much as a small elk. The fire's burned low again. A few glowing coals remain pulsing like quiet heartbeats. You shift, trying not to disturb the little girl still nestled beside you. Her grip has slackened in sleep, her face soft in the glow of dying embers. And then comes the sound. Not loud, not close, but distinct. A howl long, eerie, with that unmistakable rising lilt at the end that makes your scalp tighten. Somewhere between a wolf's call and a cry from something older, something far too comfortable with darkness. You sit up slowly. From around the cave, others stir. No panic, just that ancient communal alertness. A murmur spreads like ripples on water. Someone nudges a smoldering log, coaxing the fire back to life. Sparks leap upward in protest. You're handed a stickier spear from earlier, returned with a fresh tip of sharpened stone. You hold it close, trying not to look like a man who once ran screaming from a hedgehog. It's your shift again, night watch. You weren't scheduled, but enough people are already awake, and you didn't move fast enough to feign sleep. So up you go, stepping into the chill. Outside the cave, the world is dim and strange. Moonlight filters through the trees, painting silver lines across the earth. Everything looks bleached, shadowy, as if the world's been turned down a notch. You find your post a flat stone near the edge of the clearing and sit. The spear rests across your knees. You try to listen. There's rustling, of course. Always rustling. Could be wind, could be something more. You scan the tree line. Nothing but shifting shadows. But the howl still echoes in your mind. Historians believe night watches were a crucial part of early human survival, especially in small, vulnerable groups. The risks weren't just predators. Fire needed tending. Rivals might attack. Even a sudden storm could mean disaster if no one was alert enough to see it coming. You hear something again, closer this time, but it's not a howl, it's a growl. Your fingers tighten around the spear. From the underbrush, a shape slinks out. Low to the ground, four-legged, silent. You freeze. It's a wild dog. Or possibly a wolf. Not enormous, but enough to make your heart jackhammer in your chest. It stops, watches you. Its eyes glint in the firelight. Then, just as silently, it turns and vanishes back into the trees. You exhale unaware, until now that you are holding your breath like a poorly trained flute player. Eventually, the sky begins to lighten. Not with sunrise, just a soft brightening in the east, a whisper of morning to come. A few others rise, stretch, grunt. The fire is coaxed into flame again, and the first of the day's tasks begin fetching water, stirring coals, arguing about who kicked whom in the night. You hand your spear to the next watch. He grunts his thanks and slumps into position, already half asleep. You rejoin the cave group, where warmth and the faint smell of something root-based await. As you wrap yourself once more in your cloak and lie back, you realize something. You're not as scared as you were. You were alert. You stood your ground. You didn't scream when something with fangs appeared. Progress. The tribe is still here. You're still here, and morning is on its way. You lie down, but sleep plays coy. You shift. You sigh. You reposition your spear like a bedtime teddy bear. The cold still seeps in through every seam. And something in your bedding, possibly the moss, possibly the suspicious patch of animal hide near your knees, has developed a persistent dampness that defies logic and hope. The snores around you rise and fall like an offbeat choir. One man emits a rhythmic snort that sounds like a slow leak in a goatskin bag. A woman nearby mutters in her sleep, occasionally kicking at the ground with the determined rhythm of a dog dreaming of a chase. The child who curled up beside you earlier is now fully horizontal, one leg across your shins like a very warm and very pointy log, and you still can't sleep. The cave isn't dark exactly. Between the fire's glow and the moonlight bouncing off the cave walls, it's more like a dimly lit theater with everyone performing the age-old drama of trying to get comfortable on rocks. You roll to your side and instantly regret it. Something crunches underneath your shoulder. Possibly a beetle. Possibly last night's dinner remnant. There's a collective shift among the sleepers. Someone coughs. A dog-shaped shadow at the cave entrance stretches yawns and pads inside. It smells like wet fur and raw onions. You try to pretend it's comforting. You attempt the over-the-face cloak strategy, hood-up mouth, covered, just eyes peeking out. It helps with the warmth, but leaves you breathing the same air repeatedly. Now you're damp on the inside too. Historians suggest that sleep in prehistory was rarely deep or uninterrupted. The idea of a solid 8 hours is a modern fantasy, it seems. Back then, people likely dozed in phases, alert sleep, light sleep, short bursts, between duties or disturbances. You're living proof of that theory now. You try focusing on the crackle of the fire, counting embers instead of sheep. 1 flickers, 2 sizzle, 3 pops loudly, startling a bird from the ledge above. Still not working. You try humming to yourself. Quietly. Just a tune maybe, something vaguely resembling Greensleeves. One of your neighbors emits a sleepy grunt. You stop. It's not that you're uncomfortable. Well, you are, but that's not the whole story. It's that your mind won't quiet. You keep running through the day's events like an archaeologist, digging through a very confusing and damp trench. You survived your first proper hunt. You foraged, you flirted, you avoided being mauled in the night. You even had a brush with spiritual significance via a painted rock and an accidental overdose of questionable berries. But you also tripped in a bog, nearly swallowed a beetle hole, and may have offended the tribe's best spear thrower by mistaking his ceremonial rock for a nut. The ache in your joints tells its own tale of unfamiliar movements, cold-soaked muscles, and the slow transformation from modern comfort to ancient routine. You stretch your legs. Something cracks. Not the fire, your spine. Eventually you sit up. No one stops you. No one really notices. You wander outside the cave again. Cloak pulled tight. The landscape is blue with early twilight. Mist clings to the grass. The air is crisp and cuts right through your layers, but it's quiet out here. Still, you find a flat stone and sit. Above you, the stars are beginning to fade. A slow bleed of light touches the edges of the sky. The first birds are stirring soft chirrups, distant wing beats. And finally, your eyes start to droop. You return to the cave just as the others begin to shift, stretch, crumble their way into another day. You're exhausted, hungry, and smell faintly of burnt moss and beetle shell. But you made it through the night. You curl back into your bedding, tucking your cloak high, and let your eyes close once more. Sleep is finally coming, just as the day begins. Typical. Morning arrives, not with birdsong or a gentle caress of light, but with a snort and a stubbed toe. Someone trips over, you mutters a grunt that might translate loosely as sorry, or move log, and carries on. You groan, crack one eye open, and realize you've slept through the briefest slice of dawn. Your body aches in entirely new and exciting ways. Your hip feels like it's been used to grind grain. Around you, the cave is slowly waking, groans, stretches, scratching. Lots of scratching. It seems lice are not just a bedtime story in this era. You sit up, wrapped in your smelly cloak, and feel like a used sleeping bag. Your mouth is dry. Your stomach is still staging a slow but dignified protest. And your feet, they've formed a union and are striking against further walking. You consider staying in bed, but then remember your bed is a patch of moss and mystery stains. As the group readies for another day of primal chaos, hunting, foraging, arguing over who took the last dry stick, you take a moment to reflect. You're not thriving, but you're somehow still functioning. Barely, you hobble toward the fire. No one comments on your stiff-legged walk or the way your hair now holds a mysterious sideways bend from sleeping on a rock shaped like a disappointed uncle. You grab a strip of something leathery, probably meat, possibly shoe, and begin chewing with the resigned dignity of a person who no longer questions the culinary choices of survival. Someone passes you a stick, possibly an invitation to join the day's tasks, possibly just a stick. You nod solemnly. You've stopped flinching at every sound. You no longer examine every berry like it holds a secret vendetta. You even caught yourself grunting back at someone without thinking. You're becoming competent, or at least less of a hazard. And yet deep down, you know this isn't sustainable. Your modern body is struggling. Your immune system's doing its best, but it's clearly sending polite resignation letters to your organs. Your knees, your back, your appetite for cooked food, they're all wilting under the pressure of primal living. Historians still argue whether a modern human even in peak fitness, could truly adapt to full-time Stone Age life. Some say yes, with training tools and a strong support system. Others scoff and point to your current condition, sunburned, sleep-deprived, mildly hallucinating from last night's mushroom tea. You try to picture lasting a week, a month, a season. Could you tan, hide snap, flint-built shelter from mammoth bones and mud? Maybe. But could you do it every day while cold hungry and chased by animals with better dental plans? You begin to realize the core truth of life. Back then, it was relentless. No weekends, no breaks. Just wake up, survive, sleep, repeat. And for those who didn't keep up, who twisted an ankle, ate the wrong plant, lost their spear in a particularly rude bush, there were no second chances. Just a quiet absence the next morning and a slightly more crowded sleeping area. But still, there's a strange, undeniable beauty in it. The sun rising now over the hills bathes the camp in soft gold. Smoke from the rekindled fire curls into the sky. People move with quiet purpose. Children giggle as they chase a beetle. An elder sharpens a bone needle, humming softly. You feel connected, grounded in something raw, honest, and deeply human, even if you do smell like wet squirrel and mild panic. A young boy hands you a drink from a gourd. It's bitter, possibly fermented, possibly just really bad water. You sip, you nod, you survive, and that you realize is what this life is about, not comfort, not even happiness in the modern sense. Just endurance, adaptation, the sheer unromantic business of not dying. You might not last here. Your body is too soft. Your instincts too dulled by GPS and takeaway apps. But for a single day, you've walked their path, and against all odds, you're still standing. Now let's ease into stillness. As you lie back once more, listening to the fading rustle of the fire and the soft shuffling of ancient feet on stone, let the world begin to slow. The aches of the day, the cold creeping into your bones, the distant howl that stirred something primal in your chest, let them fade now like mist in morning light. The cave breathes around you, quiet, earthy, ancient. Outside the sky is lightening, not with urgency, but with gentleness, as if the day itself is unsure whether to begin again. And within you, a calm settles, not comfort exactly, but something deeper, a recognition of your place in this unbroken line of human resilience. You're not meant to stay here, not forever, but you've touched it, felt the weight of time, the warmth of a shared fire, the hush of stars that watched over those who came long before you. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let the fire's final whispers cradle you. And as you drift away, carried on the breath of ancient winds, remember, you survived the Stone Age. Sleep well.